Welcome back to Contacts. We are joined today by Adam Lichter, Director of Athletics, St. Mary's of Stockton. Coach, super excited to have you here.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate you having me on here.
All right, well, let's dig in. So, as an athletic director, I'm assuming you started out as a coach at some point. So what I'm curious about, because you've worn multiple hats, is if you could take us through your background in coaching and how did you end up doing it? How did you end up in the first process of, or what was the process of landing your first job? And then any subsequent jobs that led to the seat you're in now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it starts off, I have a unique story, but it always starts off with, you have an older brother that pushes the crap out of you in basketball. And I have an older brother who's 6'6", who used to beat me up in the driveway. But he basically pushed me, to the level of where I wanted to be the best. So my competitive nature got the best of me right there. And I said, you know what, I knew right away, my dad and mom, both teachers as well, that I wanted to do something in education. And what better than the love for basketball than to be a coach? I was a mid 80 baby. So in the mid 90s, the AAU basketball game, it started to pop. I started playing for the Stockton Mavericks. The Stockton Mavericks was a huge, an AAU outfit out of here. I wouldn't say huge, but it was huge for the Northern California Valley. We played people like Tyson Chandler for the SoCal All-Stars and that group. We traveled which was kind of unheard of, because AAU, you don't travel that much. Now all of a sudden we're traveling, playing basketball, and we're playing against, DeMarcus Nelson, who you might know, was on my team, over in NorCal. And so we were, I developed a love, and an appreciation for basketball and playing against the best. I then played at Lincoln High School, where, I played varsity basketball. I was a point guard. I felt like I was pretty decent. I ended up going to Florida Southern for a year to play basketball there. Then I came back and played at the College Alameda. And then I started coaching. I stopped, obviously, like anything. I met a girl. I came back, to Stockton and met a girl. And, this is where the unique story comes with me, is I started coaching, and it seems like everything's tied, and it kind of was God driven. I started coaching the current principal at our school, which is a first year principal who happened to be my best friend, started coaching for the Stockton Mavericks, which is coincidental for the girls side. He calls me when I got out of college and said, "Hey, I want you to come out and work with the point guards." I said, "Okay." Well, there was this 9-year-old point guard who was just off the chart, this girl that was just unbelievable. And she had a beautiful sister, so obviously the rest is history. I started talking to the beautiful sister. I started coaching. I ended up taking over that team because my best friend ended up moving. I took over that team, started coaching that girl, the girls 10 and under and 12 and under team for the Stockton Mavericks. And it was based out of the gym that I am the AD for now at St. Mary's High School. So it's just, there's so many ties with that when I say it's God driven. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I got a job at Stagg High School as a JV girls basketball coach, then moved on to Edison High School as the varsity coach the next year. And like anything in the coaching world, you move up, and if you're decent at it, you move up pretty fast. After Edison, I got a call by Brookside Christian because of my education. And I was asked to be the vice principal as well as the head varsity basketball coach, which I wasn't going to turn that down. I now transferred to the boys basketball game, which was good. That's where I wanted to be as well. And I had a great 6 years there and a great run. And that moved me over, obviously, to here at St. Mary's as the AD. I have 5 kids. My wife said, "You know what? I think you need to transition into something else a little bit, take some years off of coaching and be a dad, and being an athletic director. I could take my kids to everything and not have to watch film till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Because whatever I do, I want to do it the best of my ability." So my kids are really involved in my life, going to volleyball games like last night. They go to every football game. And it's just been, it's been tremendous being here. But yeah, that's been me. And that's been where I think started off, where as a little girls basketball coach, catapulted me up to being the AD at, I would say, one of the prime schools, definitely in Northern California.
Yeah, absolutely. And people who are unfamiliar with the California sports landscape, especially Northern California, St. Mary's is one of the elite / upper level programs in the northern half of the state. And so that's great that you get to do that now. So going through that pathway, which is coach, administration, lower level, upper level, and figuring, as you said, you're decent at what you do, you get an opportunity to grow more as a leader in other spots. What I'm curious about is the idea or thought that I am prepared for this job or this job. And all of a sudden you have an opportunity to do that job like the head coach, or in this case, as the athletic director. What did you realize very quickly you still needed to figure out when you sat in this particular chair? I thought I knew, I was prepared, and then all of a sudden, out of left field, this comes flying at you.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that at a time that I just had to deal with the De La Salle, De La Salle football game, and I'd say it's the De La Salle debacle here in Stockton. We had our air quality was 151. Actually, it was 175 on Friday, so we had to move the game to the morning. And then it was still 175. So we had to move the game and had to pivot to De La Salle and play the football game there. But between that and COVID, you're never really prepared for stuff like that. So, if you are good at what you do, you have to set a plan. I have a great administration. You're always as good as your weakest link, and you're always as good as the players on your team. And I feel like at St. Mary's, we have some really good players here. And so we work together and we plan and we make sure, we're ready. But to answer your question as well, is what I figured out. I feel like coaching is a calling. It's the same as a teacher. I felt and still feel that I was born to coach, like I said early on. I mean, I was born to coach. I was, that's what I wanted to do. I would watch film. I would do anything I possibly could do. But yeah, you're only as good as the people you're around. And I was always taught, you never want to be the smartest guy in the room. In essence, when I was varsity coach at Brookside Christian, I had a tremendous, a tremendous assistant coach, and actually several assistant coaches that pushed me. I never wanted yes men. And I think that's transitioned to here as my administrative assistant, and all my hires as coaches is I don't want yes men. I want people to push me. But that takes time figuring out, because when you're young, you think you know everything. So, it took me making a few mistakes to say, okay, I need to get people around me who are going to make me look good. But I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
Let's talk about that for a second in two different strains here. One, are there mistakes you can point to right now that were transformational for you? And if so, what was the learning that you have continued to apply? And then as you answer that, I would love to know how you would take that in your own experience to then share advice as now a director of athletics. Here's what I believe to be the three things that are most important that every coach needs to focus on.
Well, every coach needs to focus on, I'll go to that one right now, is obviously character. I think winning's a byproduct. And that's something that we talk about a lot, is winning's a byproduct of basically building character in these young men and women. And that's been our thing. I think what I didn't do at the beginning, which was enough, is have coaches meetings, have meetings with coaches, I'd say maybe on a weekly basis. And what I mean by that is I'm not forcing them to come in for a weekly basis, but I have to be present. And, with all this newfangled technology, you can do Calendly, and you can do these things where you set up meetings for your coaches that might not feel like they're getting heard by me. So basically, I want everybody here as the football team or the girls golf team, they should all feel appreciated and they should all feel like, that I'm here for them, because that trickles down to the student athletes.
Right.
If you don't have happy coaches and they're miserable, your athletes are going to be miserable. Right. And it starts at the top, and it starts with me, just like it starts with the president of the school, go to the principal, to go to me, to go down to the coaches, to go to the student athletes. So, but yeah, I think, does that answer your question a little bit? I think that's.
Yes, you said character. And then if I'm a new coach and I'm coming in and I think I know everything, because we all do, except those of us that are a little more mature who realize we don't know anything. And whatever age we hit that maturity phase is different for all of us. But what are you offering? Hey, new hire, super excited to have you. Here are the 3 things that are non-negotiables that you need to do. You mentioned character. What are the other ones that you would offer so people listening who are new and are not getting that feedback can steal from you?
Yeah. So if you look at, I'm a huge John Wooden guy, and I assume you are too, since you said a little bit about basketball. So John Wooden, we have basically, I have the pyramid of success here on my wall, like every good athletic director does. And we talk about all, exactly. So, you talk about it. I think obviously enthusiasm, and you're going to hear a little bit probably later if you talk to me about enthusiasm. That's one of the main things for me is if you don't love your job.
School begin at 10:45. The only thing that will be shorter today.
We'll edit this out.
B period. Attention to St. Mary's. B period will begin at 10:45. The only thing that will be shorter today is B period. Thank you.
School in general.
We'll leave that in there, and then your president can be like, hey, that was on you. I didn't make that happen.
Exactly. So you might keep talking. So so I'd say enthusiasm. Enthusiasm for me, once again, that leads off me. If I'm not enthusiastic, and I'm not providing energy to my coaches, how can I expect them to do that? And I'm huge into energy. I'm huge into, loving what you do. My dad had the option to be a food broker with my grandfather, and make a lot of money. But he decided not to. He was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And him and my mom moved out here to be teachers. And if you know anything about teachers in the 80s, they didn't make any money. So he decided to do something he loved instead of something that made him a lot of money. Because he always told me, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I'm a firm believer in that. I love what I do. I love what I do every day. I love the student athletes. I love my coaches, and they're, they become family. So, but I would say enthusiasm for sure.
Got it. All right, let's go back to this piece of you made some mistakes and had to learn from those. Are there specific moments that you carry with you today that have been transformational in the decisions that you make today, that not only do you offer to others, but it's like you can actually go back to that moment and say, this is when I learned X?
Well, let me tell you about a basketball thing first, where I ruined I wouldn't say ruined it, but I lost a section championship game. So for every basketball coach out there, I'm going to tell you, we were in the section championship game, and we were up 3 in the section championship game at Sleep Train Arena. I want to say this was 7-8 years ago. We were playing Mariposa. We were probably, we were the favorite. We were up 3 with 20 seconds left. I decided not to foul. My assistant coach is telling me, I could hear him in my ear, foul. They only hit 1 3 all game. So I'm trying to roll the dice a little bit. Kid hits a bank 3 at the buzzer. We go into overtime, lose the game. In a section championship game, when you get all the way there, that was hard to stomach. That was one of the biggest failures I've ever did as a coach, because I feel that was on me. I had a reason in my head at the moment why I didn't do it, because the kid that hit it, trust me, only hit 4 threes all year. I went back and looked max preps, but you know what? He hit it. I probably should have fouled. That was one of the biggest coaching failures and mistakes that I could have made. And you have to look in the locker room, those guys after, when they're sitting at Sleep Train Arena, and tell them it's all on you. That's disappointing. So if I ever got in that situation again, I I ever coach basketball again here or anywhere, I'm probably fouling if we're up 3 with 20 seconds left.
All right, let me push back on that a little bit, because we had a similar experience after we won the section and we're playing in the NorCal semifinals, and we were up 3 with about 6 seconds to go. Did not foul. Dude's falling out of bounds, bank 3, overtime, up 2, 7 seconds, circus shot, second overtime, guy fouled out, and we lost. And as we reflect as coaches, it's like, hey, would I do that differently? So I'll offer this, coach, to make you maybe feel a little bit better. Harvard did a study on this, and it showed that it doesn't matter either way. So there's that piece. So don't feel that bad. However, I will say this, that reading a book years later by one of either Don Meyer's players, or it was Don Meyer's book. Here's your new strategy. You foul, but what's the concern with fouling? The ball's going to come off. They might get a putback, whatever. And then you just lane violate, making them make the shot. And then you have to take it out and you take that piece away. It would have been great for both of us to have that tool before, but I definitely came up with it afterwards. So anyone else out there, that's the strategy.
That's awesome.
So I was the same way, kicking myself. And I read this. I was like, oh, where was this when we needed it?
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk about things that you feel are unique or that you have stolen from someone else and implemented that are so important culturally that you would do it no matter what job you went to. Is there something you can offer there? This is the thing that has the biggest ripple effect on what we do. And it doesn't matter if I'm coaching at, the YMCA or at this college, this is going to be part of it.
Yeah, I have, like I said, I have 5 kids, and I have my youngest boy is 6 and my middle's 8, and they're playing basketball now. So it's sweet to see. So obviously I'm asked to coach because I have coaching experience, and I said, hey, I'm busy, but I have a coach that was the old MJC coach coaching my kids. The reason I have him coaching them right now, at least because they're young, is his energy. And Rolf Waldo Emerson said, nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm, which I say that's energy and enthusiasm, and the passionate. Be passionate about something bigger than yourself. I mean, these are moments that I would talk to my student athletes about, and I continue to do just as an AD when I bring them in my office, is be passionate about something bigger than yourself, care for something bigger than yourself. And that's just the team model that we have here at St. Mary's. I want them to know, I want every player to know how much they're cared about, and we care about them more than a number, more than just how many yards they can rush in the football game. They're cared about, we care about their grades. But that care goes a long way, because what I've noticed is not just in athletics, but in anything. If you care about people, they'll run through a wall for you, and I'll run through that wall for my president and my principal, because they have that energy and that enthusiasm, and that care for me. So, if you have that team, you'll run through a wall for them if you're cared for. So, obviously the energy, enthusiasm, like I said before in the last question, but be passionate. Be passionate about something bigger than yourself. And if I didn't believe about St. Mary's, I didn't believe what the mission was at St. Mary's, I wouldn't be here. Trust me. I'd work somewhere that I'm passionate about. Because it's contagious for sure.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot here, that the whole point of sports, as far as I'm concerned, is to teach leadership, followership, and to learn to be part of something bigger than yourself, because that's the life skill, right? What role do you have? How does that translate? It might not be the one that you want, but everyone's role is important. So I think that's a great piece of advice. As the athletic director, you are uniquely positioned to be involved in all of the programs at your school. And what I think about as a basketball guy as well is, how can we mine for ideas in places that are a little unconventional, right? So are you going to the field hockey practice and seeing what can you translate to basketball? And so I don't think that is front of mind for most of us when we're younger, but I'm curious if there's anything you've been able to learn watching non-basketball coaches and teams that you, if you go back to coaching, would implement because of its transferability.
Well, it's really unique here. We have unique sports too. I create everything over the moon. We have beach volleyball here. We have ice hockey here now. We started a little ice hockey, little ice hockey academy here, which was awesome. So I go to all the practices, like you said, because I want to get a pulse of what the coaches are doing. And I want to see their energy. I want to see what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, my water polo coach, who happens to be, my aquatics director, sports coincide so much. I mean, water polo, I didn't understand how much that it's like basketball, you know what I mean? And you don't understand that till you watch it, with the plays drawn up but yeah, I mean, they're all unique, but I don't know if I could answer that question of what I would do moving forward as a coach if I go back in the coaching world.
Let's reframe it then. What have you learned watching other sports that aren't your discipline that you could offer? Because again, for me, the goal is, hey, go watch other sports. You're going to learn a ton. Don't get stuck in the rabbit hole of it's basketball or it's nothing.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously, but every sport's unique. Like I said, I mean, football, you could push kids in certain sports other than maybe you're not going to yell at people in girls golf. So obviously what I would take at girls golf is there's more discipline that needs in golf or tennis than you would need in basketball. So obviously that discipline, I'd take that obviously, and I would probably transcend that into basketball. Is obviously you need discipline in basketball, but you don't think about that all the time because you're caught up in going. But that discipline that you have in golf or that you have in tennis that you need obviously, or even in baseball as a pitcher, you know what I mean? Where you have to clear the mechanism when you're on that mound and it's just you. It's almost like, being a free throw shooter. So you kind of can cross over those sports and be able to use those metaphors for your coaches, but use them for your players. If I got back in basketball, that clear the mechanism that my baseball coach says when you're on the pitcher, that's no different than clearing the mechanism when you're sitting there, at the free throw line. So.
Yeah. So, there's obviously transferable skills, approaches, concepts that I guess the offer would be get out there and watch. Doesn't matter if it's your sport or anybody else, but make sure you're seeing different ways of doing things. And on that note, if you think back to when you first started until now, both as a coach and an administrator, how has your approach changed? I was over here and I've learned this, and now this is what I do moving forward.
Yeah. Impulsive when you're young. So super impulsive. And I think anybody can speak on, about me as a player and as an early coach. I was super impulsive. I flew by the seat of my pants early on in my career as far as I wanted to do it. I wanted to go and I was going for it without thinking of the repercussions and the ripple effects that it might cause. So now it's doing a lot of, thinking before I act. And that's important. As as an AD, you have to think, because you can't just make a call right away without thinking about the parents or the teachers. If you get a kid out early, for instance, for school, you might have a bunch of teachers mad at you. You might have the vice principal mad at you, and early in my days, I would just, I'd have a parent call me and I'd do it right away to get the kids out to, be a people pleaser. But then you're actually making more people mad than you are, or not doing what's right, because you got to have them in school time. And that's just basically, something that I would do impulsively before that now I think about every course of action I think about, and I think about what's going to happen if I make this decision, or if I say this, what's going to happen. And we all know with Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff, if you make a comment now, you're labeled with that comment forever. It never goes away. So you have to think before you speak. And those are life lessons for all of the athletes, is think before you speak, think before you post. And I can't tell you how many college college recruiters come in here that tell me that they don't recruit certain kids because they're on their Twitter and Instagram not thinking about that.
Yep.
And that's the same thing as me as an adult, or you as an adult, or any AD or any teacher. You have to think before you talk, and you have to think before the actions that you do. So I would say, young me, just go for it, and then get yelled at. The old me now, think.
Yeah, when you talked about this before we started recording, the idea of prehabbing or game planning in advance rather than reacting on the back end. And the goal for all of us, I think, is to get to a place where we respond rather than we react, right? We've taken in information, we're going to take a beat to process, and then we're going to make a decision with as much information as we can glean. Never going to have a perfect information flow on that. And this can be sports, this can be life, whatever speaks to you in this moment. But what have you most recently changed your mind on? I used to be in this camp, now I'm over here, and here's why. And if it's easier, make it about coaching, administration, school, whatever.
Yeah, that's a tough question. What have I changed? I think multiple things I've changed over the past, I'd say a couple of years, especially as an AD. As a coach, everything's about you. And when you're a coach and you're not the AD, you expect things. You expect things now. You expect, why isn't equipment being bought now? Why isn't this being done now? My program's important, but as an AD now, you notice, oh crap, there was a reason why when I'm sitting there as a coach, kind of getting mad at my AD. Now I'm kicking myself now saying, oh man, I'm in this chair and I know he can't do the purchase order yet because the purchase order has to be signed over here by this person who then has to go to East Bay, who then has to go here. Mm-hmm. So you want things now. But I think, that patience of understanding now that it's harder to be in this role, than it is as a coaching role. And that's not to diminish coaching at all. I mean, because the coaching is hard with the student athletes, but you're just in charge of more, and anytime you move up a level, you're in charge of more. You want to move to if I wanted to be the president of the school someday, I'm going to have more responsibility, more people to answer to. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's where I'm at on that for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. And to this point, if people aren't necessarily picking up on the thread, it's you went from coaching athletes to coaching adults. And the messaging theme, while similar, the delivery has to be different. And how do you navigate that so that they come alongside of you or you come alongside of them is probably more realistic rather than it being combative. And I think that's the lesson in that moment. All right, we're going to go with one more here just to let you end on a high note. If you were starting over today, young Adam, getting into the coaching business or the administration business, you could take this maybe on two folds for you. What advice would you have for your younger self? And often it's interpreted as what would you do differently, but I don't think many of us would change because that's our lesson tree. But what advice would you have to help you get to this version of Adam? If you could go back in the time machine and give some advice.
Well, the advice you gave me just previously about the fouling, because I'm telling you right now, I would have won that section. That would have been my second championship game in a row, and I would have felt a lot better about myself. I'll tell you that much. But I don't know if I'd give myself advice in the sense of, not that I'm perfect at all, but what I love is I love my, all the players that I go to their weddings after now, and I know you could speak on this as well. The relationships that I've had and I've been lucky to have is be invited to the baby showers of now my players. Basically second to none. I mean, that's more important to me now. And I tell my wife that all the time, way more important, those relationships, than any amount of wins that I had. And I'll never forget this. I watch it every year, and I guarantee you watch it too, is the Jim Valvano speech on the ESPYs. I think it was 1994. It epitomizes the way I live, and it's epitomized the way I've lived since I've watched it. I was only 9 years old when that came on. And I've watched it every year since. And I literally, that's how I live every day. And that's how I coach every day. And I loved how he talked about, he was an Italian and he always talked. That's how I talk. I can't help but, but be enthusiastic. But he said, you laugh, you think, you cry every day. That's a full day. And you know that. And, I'm telling you right now, I try to do that every day. Now I cry every day just because I have 5 kids. I'm telling you right now, that's why I cry every day, but not in a bad way, but I bet you're dealing with a lot. But I laugh, I cry, and I think the thinking part that we talked about earlier, I sit in my office and think every day of just every day, how much I appreciate every day. We have a chapel here. I go in there and I sit in thought, but never give up no matter what in the adversity. And we talk about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And these are the messages that I use and I'll continue to use. But yeah, I don't know if I changed, Justin. It's not a conceited thing. It's that I think it's the relationships that I forged. And I really think, I love what I'm doing, and it's gotten me from coaching a 9-year-old girl over here in the gym, 15 years ago, to the seat I'm in today is, it's all God driven. I don't think I've changed. I don't know if I changed anything.
Okay, great. So I think the message there, if people can't parse it though, is the relationships are what you need to pour your energy into and make that the focus, not the outcome. And that's not what we do when we're young. It's about the discipline of sport, water polo, football, basketball, volleyball, and the relationship piece grows on us as we get older. But as we do age, to your point, I got a wedding to go to next month, and it's because we start focusing on the relationship, and then the success comes from that. So if people couldn't figure out that was kind of the messaging that was there. Anything else you want to add on that note?
No, man. Thank you for your time. You do a great job here, and continue to do it. If you ever need me or any of my coaches, we're always here for you.
Awesome. Looking forward to catching up soon when I get back to the Valley.
All right, man.